a nice acronym for it nowadays. Achilles with PTSD, you know. And even we make a great classic out of the Iliad. We're dealing with, it's a Rambo story, that's all. Achilles, Sylvester Stallone is perfect. He should play Achilles, not Brad Pitt. Brad Pitt is too cute and too psychological. Sylvester Stallone, yeah, I'm Achilles, you know. Let's kill all the Trojans. I mean, it's the same thing. But it's the backbone of our culture because we're too militarized. We're too violent. And but if the Tibetans can do it, then the Tibetans inflicted this demilitarization through this educational system that they got from India. I mean, the Indians did it initially. And then the Indians became more vulnerable and they got invaded and were squashed under the Muslims and then the Europeans for 1,000 years. Just getting loose now. And then the Tibetans did it. And then now they're getting squashed. But then the Tibetans got the Mongolians to become demilitarized. Now, if Genghis Khan's great-grandchildren can go around and say, oh, mani padme hum, will you like to come for tea to my house? Oh, mani padme hum. And actually, they had the Mongolian government in the last few centuries, they had a special place outside of Urga, the capital there, where people would go on pilgrimage, the Mongolian herders. And when you went there, you had to leave your wallet, most of it, and your flocks there, because the Mongolians were so generous toward the Dharma and toward the monasteries and the monks and toward the Buddhist learning that they would give everything away every time they would go to the capital. It's like every time you go to church, you give your whole property away, so the government had to come and keep it in a locker. And so then when they left town, they wouldn't be destitute. And these were people who conquered the entire Eurasia, basically, except they thought Western Europe was too boring. So they didn't bother past Vienna. So 2 cases at least, 3 cases at least, completely pacified the country and completely demilitarized them. And then, and even they say in India and even China, and diminished the violence a great deal in China, diminished it even in Japan and Korea. Everywhere it went, it diminished it. It didn't ever conquer it. It's never perfect. There's no perfection. But it diminished it everywhere. So it proved that it works, this kind of civilizational matrix. Not as a religious conversion, but as embedded in the system of education, right? An education for individuality, flexibility, gentleness, wisdom, and something else I forget. Oh, happiness. Happiness, right? So this is what we need. And now on our planet, at this time, when we have all these insoluble problems, supposedly, like in America, nobody can solve the insurance crisis, the health crisis. We can spend $1 trillion bombing and obliterating the people of Iraq on the hope of some cheap oil, which has only become more expensive. But we cannot insure women and children in our 48 states. It's impossible. We cannot build a decent bridge in Minnesota. We cannot have schools for people. They have to be charged an arm and a leg to go to school. I mean, it's really quite shocking. So these people who are doing this are obviously not educated in a civilized manner. Because in a civilized manner, this would not be the case. It's not possible that these priorities would be so warped. And nobody really who is running for any kind of office is really tackling it, actually. They're all catering to this and that warmonger. And so we need that, but who is not doing that on this planet? Well, you all know, you had him here in this hall, the Dalai Lama. Now the Chinese say the Dalai Lama, they say that Tibet is fine, and of course it's always been Chinese, even though the Tibetans never spoke Chinese, and not a single Chinese lived in Tibet before 1950. Not a single one lived on the Tibetan plateau over 14,000 feet, more than for a short period to do some business or trade or to be stationed somewhere in a Manchu garrison for a short time. Nobody lived there. How could they be that? How could it be their country? They didn't live there. Absolutely nobody lived there. And the Tibetans have a special skill to live in one of the most difficult environments in the world, most delicate, and its preservation is crucial to the river livelihood of 3.7 billion people. The Mekong, Salween, Irrawaddy, Ganga, Brahmaputra, Indus, Sutlej, Yellow River, Yangtze River Basin, all of them come from there. So it's the health of Tibet is really essential to all two-thirds of humanity almost. More, or about half to 5/8 of humanity. They therefore have been occupied, and they have been genocided, and they are still being genocided in a certain way, and they're being completely crushed and totally provoked, the Tibetans. And they are so provoked that they have stood up in the last few months, to everyone's shock and to our great displeasure, actually. His Dalai Lama's tremendous unhappiness, because he feels so helpless. He knows they are helpless. And nevertheless, they just couldn't stand it anymore after 60 years, and they stood up and said, no, we are Tibetans. We are not Chinese. And which I think would be a little better PR for the PRC than even the Olympics, don't you think? A sitting president of China getting a Nobel Peace Prize. And all he has to do is stop making an enemy, or treating as an enemy, the most friendly man in the world. You've met him. He's a pretty jolly fellow, wouldn't you say? He has a good, when he and Tutu start tickling each other, it's a nightmare. It's really heavy duty, the two of them. They're really funny, they really are. And why, how could he be he was a wolf for years, and then he became a jackal lately, and now he's been upgraded to being a demon, which is totally silly. And nobody believes it. Everybody in the world knows him too well. In a popularity contest in Germany, he was right up there with Angela Merkel and Benedict in popularity. More than Benedict, I think, and a little less than Angela. We love Angela, by the way. She's the greatest. She even tolerated a massage from George Bush without having him arrested. Or like slap a suit of sexism on him or something. So if Hu Jintao would do a couple of things. He would stop making an enemy out of Dalai Lama. He would withdraw colonists who can never live in Tibet and don't want to be there, and spend the huge subsidy he spends to put them there on fixing up wherever they come from in Guizhou or whatever it is, and having more production there. But really, China should get back to double digging and wonderful vegetables and organic farming, and get out of all these coal things and making all this crap for Walmart that we can't buy anymore because we are all totally mortgaged out. They should really cut that out. And stop ruining China with our sort of industrial slime, and let China get back to what they really do great. They double dig fabulously, and they make the greatest food. I had a lunch today at the Dongling Kakyuan, you wouldn't even believe. You know, I'm a horrible redneck, and I had like all tofu, but I was at a barbecue. I was happy as a bee. And not a single animal had to die. Their vegetarian cooking is so excellent. Really is good. And so he would just remove all those expensive colonists that don't want to be there. Remove all the occupation troops that have nothing to do there. And then, of course, then that would mean removing the 376 brothels in downtown Lhasa that service the troops. Send them home to behave themselves or do some useful work. And then let the Tibetans have one country, two systems there, which seems to work okay in Hong Kong. And let the Dalai Lama go back with his people and have a happy time. And let the Tibetans run a tourist industry from them that would knock your socks off. You will go over there and they'll do dances with masks, and we can have meditation retreats, and we can have hot spring health spas, and we can have Switzerland of Asia. And I even offer them the prospect of a banking industry, a Switzerland of Asia, where they can all put their numbered accounts. By letting the Tibetan legislature write privacy laws where their rivals in China can't follow them. And their sovereign fund can be invested through Tibet in places where we'd be more paranoid to have the Chinese buying things. Let the Tibetans buy it. And then the Dalai Lama would be able to travel freely in China and rekindle spirituality in China. And the rulers of China's CCP would finally get off this anti-religion nonsense, and they would sponsor them like the emperors of China did in ancient time, and then their people might begin to actually like them. I don't believe that they would really be able to be very well elected, those Politburo members. I don't think they're that popular, actually, by their people. Now, they say that their bloggers are all there, but they have 10,000 bloggers in a room that they hire to write state blogs. They don't have free blogs.